that you've sent into us and what needs to be done. But stick with us now for the Politics Show where you are.
Hello, welcome to the Politics Show in the North. It provides jobs, cuts carbon and is the envy of politicians north and south. So why hasn't Yorkshire's warm zone gone nationwide? And pay up or shut up. The police chief throwing down the gauntlet to ministers in Whitehall. But first, rarely have people been so angry at the leaders of the failed banks. On Tuesday, MPs got a chance to unleash their wrath on the disgraced bosses. On Wednesday, a former chief executive resigned from one of the most powerful jobs in the city. And then a black hole the size of £10 billion was found in HBOS's accounts. A week can be a long time in banking. Some argue that the Yorkshire heart of HBOS was ripped out of the institution years ago, but it still employs many thousands in its birthplace. People following the twists and turns of the banking crisis are still anxious about their futures. Others are furious at the bank's fat cats.
I think that the more the credit crunch goes on, the more information we find out about that we hadn't found about previously.
I think things happen so quickly that I don't think they could do the Lloyds TSB could do the due diligence. I think they just got caught really short. Things had to happen fast.
The bosses are just they're sat in their offices oblivious to what their employees are getting from the public.
Well, earlier I spoke to George Moody, the Labour MP for Leeds East, who was on the Treasury Select Committee and one of those who grilled the former banking executives. I asked him what the aim of the questioning was, given the continuing levels of public anger.
Well, the point was that certainly on the Tuesday, where the failed bankers were there, we were trying to get them to admit they had a problem and find out why they'd done what they did, and then move on to learning lessons so we could take steps to make sure it didn't happen again. The great difficulty, Claire, as you saw, was that they were all in denial. That the longer the session went on, they had a well-prepared apology at the beginning, but the longer the session went on, the more it was apparent they didn't think they'd done anything wrong. And considering the harm they're doing to ordinary people, that was the unacceptable part of the whole proceedings.
And also, 3 days after they sat in front of you and said, oh, we're terribly sorry, it turned out that there was a gaping hole of some 11 billion that they failed to tell you about, or at worst, didn't know. I mean, they treated you lot with utter contempt, didn't they?
Well, I got upbraided by one of the bankers because I said they'd taken 37 billion from the government and yet they'd screwed them. Because they hadn't done what they'd promised to do in return, which is restart lending to homeowners and small businesses. But they took offence at that, but it becomes apparent from Friday's announcement from Lloyds, the 11 million you referred to, that they have no shame, they've no idea of openness, accountability, transparency. They want to pay themselves huge amounts of money and keep us all in the dark.
All right, let's just talk about jobs in Yorkshire. That's what we're worried about. How fearful should people be here, having seen that performance from those bankers? How fearful now, the next episode?
Well, we read this morning RBS is looking to something like 20 to 30,000 jobs. HBOS have announced this huge loss. So I would be extremely concerned for jobs because HBOS will probably follow the RBS tactic and strategy of just cutting costs, and that means thousands of jobs.
Do you predict thousands of jobs going in Yorkshire now?
I can't see where they're going to get this money unless, again, they come and put the begging bowl out to government. and I'm not sure they want to do that.
This is a very, very uncertain future for the thousands of people sitting here at home, fearful for their jobs, fearful for how they're going to pay their bills and look after their family in the coming year.
But that's what we were trying to do, Claire. We were trying to get them to come clean and also to agree that they should be restarting lending to small businesses which would keep people in their jobs and keep people in their homes. And I came out of that thinking they're in denial, angry and frustrated because they seem not to care a damn about that. Their own survival is top of their list. They'll take government money, but they'll walk away from any responsibility for their customers and the people working hard in businesses throughout this country. People can lose their homes, lose their jobs. As long as the bankers don't, then it's okay.
Did you feel powerless?
Oh, I feel very frustrated and very angry. We're watching the turmoil in ordinary life with ordinary people, and these masters of the universe are talking about forgoing 1 year's bonus when they've set aside millions and millions in their bank accounts from past years of misbehaviour.
George Moody, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure, Claire.
And that subject won't go away either. Now, there are two challenges that we're told will overshadow generations to come. The current economic crisis, of course, and climate change. But one council in our region says it's doing its bit to try to ease both by insulating households in a catchment area for free. Yes, you got it. For free. Well, Kirklees Council says its Warm Zone scheme gets unemployed builders back to work and it reduces household carbon emissions. So today we're asking why the scheme hasn't been adopted nationwide. Len Tingle is with a happy householder in Huddersfield. Len, the question is, what's the catch on this?
No catch as far as we're aware. I mean, we've brought the Politics Show cameras here to this front garden here in the Newsome district of Huddersfield. The reason this entire street, this entire district has been blitzed with leaflets and people knocking on doors. Now, who's been doing it? It's been the local council, Kirklees Council, have been trying to persuade people like Karen here, householders, to have their homes, their lofts insulated. Karen, you had yours done. Has it done the trick?
It certainly has, yes, especially the upstairs. The house is a lot warmer. When we moved in, it was a very cold house, but I can honestly say that the loft insulation has worked for us.
And let's be clear, you didn't pay a penny?
Not a penny.
We'll come back to your house in a second or two because we've got the leader of the council in there and also the leader of Kirklees Greens. But this scheme is unique to the UK as we understand it, and word of it has reached as far as Scotland, where they've been trying, unsuccessfully as it happens, to bring it in for the whole of the country of Scotland.
This is pensioner Mavis Thorne outside her snug, newly insulated home at Newsome near Huddersfield. And these are the Broaches outside their home at Kirk Newton in West Lothian, about 10 miles from Edinburgh. Inside, there are days when it's not worth the Broaches even taking their coats off.
Take your coat off, please.
We have pretty poor loft insulation at the moment. We haven't been in the house that long and it's one of the priorities for us to get replaced. We just need to work out how we can afford it and prioritise what needs to be done first.
Half an hour away, the elegance of Edinburgh in the winter sunshine. The temperature is still hovering around freezing and it's been snowing, but you wouldn't know it looking at the rooftops.
But they tell me that the snow disappeared off those roofs a lot faster than it did in Yorkshire and Lincolnshire in the same sort of wintry conditions. And the reason for that? Scotland has one of the lowest levels of roof insulation of anywhere in the UK.
250 miles south, and it's a different story in the Huddersfield area. In the past 2 years, 9,000 homes have had their cavity walls filled. 18,000 have had efficient loft insulation installed, and it hasn't cost the householder a penny. Kirklees Council's Warm Front scheme has paid for it all. Mavis Thorne's house has been one of them.
The house is really warm. I have to turn it off, actually. The fact that, you know, it's not going out through the roof or the walls, I'm saving on energy, really. So, you know, I think it's a good thing all in all.
This call centre in Edinburgh is at the heart of the Scottish Government's moves to improve energy use in the home.
Yeah, this is the place we can give you some advice on how to get the grants.
Insulation is available, but the difference here is that unless the householder is on a state pension or benefits, they have to contribute to the costs.
I think it makes a difference if people know they're eligible for free grants. They'll definitely make inquiries, but for people on low incomes, even £200 can be a lot of money and can put them off. Although they will get a quick payback on that, that's still £200 they need to find up front.
That's why Huddersfield suddenly became top of the agenda in the Scottish Parliament this month. Green members of the Parliament had visited West Yorkshire and wanted to set up the same scheme for the whole of Scotland. But the ruling SNP said the £100 million estimated cost was just too much. But the Greens here in Scotland say that the Huddersfield scheme is so good and it's so important to replicate it here in Scotland that they will not allow it to die.
Well, Scotland has a very great need to do a lot better on insulation and fuel poverty. We've got lots of untreated homes. Huddersfield, Kirklees took the opposite approach. They said, let's just get the whole job done. Abolish the means testing, make sure that this is an area-based approach, go through an area, blitz it, never need to go back. That's the only way to get the whole job done. That's the only way to eradicate fuel poverty and reduce our carbon emissions into the bargain in a way that supports jobs too.
Edinburgh hasn't heard the last of Huddersfield. The Scots Greens plan to reintroduce the Kirklees scheme to Parliament as soon as possible. Credit crunch or not, they feel that if Huddersfield can afford it, why can't the capital city of Scotland?
You can see I've come inside now. It's 6 degrees out there. It's a lot warmer in here. And joining me in this cosy front room, Councillor Mebob Khan, the Labour leader of Kirklees Council, and Andrew Cooper, the leader of the Greens on Kirklees Council. Coming to you first, Councillor Khan, entirely free. Who's paying for it then?
Kirklees Council and ultimately the local taxpayers paying for it. The cost of the scheme for Kirklees is 10 million, but we've managed to have investment of another 10 million from energy suppliers, and everyone benefits.
Now this scheme, it's a couple of years old now, it's got another year to run. How successful has it been in terms of the number of houses, the penetration that you've got?
65% penetration so far. It's covered 2/3 of the Metropolitan Borough of Kirklees, and it's extremely popular with local people, and we intend to continue this for the next year.
Now then, moving over to the Greens, it was your idea, your party's idea. You pushed it hard. Yep. Unique in the UK as far as we know, but can a town like Huddersfield, the Kirklees district, afford to keep it running?
I think it's really, they can't really afford not to keep it going. A scheme like this puts money back in people's pockets. It doesn't go into people's fuel bills. People can save about £150 a year on a scheme like this in terms of their fuel bills. If you reduce the council tax by £150 a year, that will be incredibly popular. So there's a lot of benefits from a scheme like this.
Now, your opposite numbers in the Scottish Parliament came down here, had a look at it, liked it. They tried to get it set up for the whole of Scotland. There was a furious row, and what got it dropped was the eventual long-term cost. Can you really sustain it?
Well, if you actually look at the long-term benefits, you're actually saving millions and millions of pounds in fuel bills across the whole of Scotland for such a scheme. We're saving £4.5 million a year out of people's pockets a year with a scheme like this. So it is a scheme that you can't afford not to do. It's the sort of thing which creates jobs, which is exactly the sort of thing we want in the economy at the moment.
Let's go back to the leader of the council. I mean, when this was first set up, you weren't actually the leader then. Labour wasn't running the council. Yeah. Actually, you voted against this scheme then. What made you change your mind?
We've changed our mind because we've seen the long-term benefits of it. If by sustaining this scheme, we'll keep 200 jobs in the local economy, and like Andrew says, people will benefit by £150 per year on their bills. But also, it's been a difficult financial time for this council at this moment, but we are concentrating on our priorities, and this is one of them.
Now, your own government, the Labour government, put its own plans in place. 2012 it kicks in, but they still say that although they're going to give heavy subsidies for people to have this sort of work done, they still want a contribution from the householders if they can afford it. What's wrong with that?
The Labour government scheme is a national scheme. We've got to look at our local circumstances, and I would urge every local council to top up the government scheme. This is what we've done. Money's come from government via energy providers, and that's about 10 million